Go.
Hello everybody, so as promised, here's a video about autism. I was diagnosed a few years back with autism. Actually, my son was diagnosed first, and my son's pediatrician looked at me and basically said, "Oh, by the way, you're autistic." So I was like, "Excuse me?" He's like, "By the way, you're autistic just like your son. You're high functioning. I'm the Sheldon Cooper of the spectrum, not the Rain Man, but the Sheldon Cooper." Best way to describe it. So as promised, I was going to talk about some personal stuff. I'm going to talk about what it is like to live with autism. It's very difficult. So we'll go way back when I first started school. Let's start there. Every morning, when my mom told me I would start school, instead of being excited about school, it was a change of routine, and I didn't like it. Didn't want to go to school. I was actually afraid of it. Every morning I'd throw up while waiting for the bus, and this lasted for a very long time. Every morning, my mom hated it, but I needed education, and she was a good mom. I'm not blaming her in any way or any shape or form, but she would send me to school even though I would cry, vomit, throw up. It was actually affecting me physically. It would make me sick. And the biggest reason for this is because I didn't like to change the routine, and I didn't feel like I was afraid of the unknown. And even after the known of what school was, I still didn't want to go. I still threw up every morning. Had a lot of trouble making any friends whatsoever. I didn't have any actually at that time. At that time, we lived in Blackburn Hamlet, near Orleans. For some of you who don't know where that is, it's near Orleans. Most people know where Orleans is. So, so going to that school was quite the challenge. I had trouble making friends. I didn't have any, to be honest. I was a loner, quiet to myself. All I would do is look at the clock. I wouldn't listen to the teacher. I was too focused on the clock. I just couldn't wait for the day to be over to get back home to my mom. I was very attached to my mom. I miss her a lot. She's passed away of lung cancer, so I miss her a lot. Anyways, so that would be challenge number one. That's when it first started. My mom knew something was strange with that. She'd often question it a bit and wondering why I was like that. Another thing that I was doing is I didn't eat any vegetables. I would eat fruit, but I would not eat any vegetables. My son, he doesn't eat vegetables or fruit. He's a little bit more severe when it comes to sensory for that. It's the textures. My mom would also, it's not just textures, we kind of have radar. Me and my son, my mom would hide vegetables, like grinding up the spaghetti sauce, the vegetables, so because she thought, he needs his vitamins. I'll try grinding it up. That didn't work. I just knew there was vegetables in there. I could taste them. And I didn't want it, and it made me throw up. A lot of these things my mom tried to make me eat would make me throw up. I would gag on it, and I didn't know why. My mom didn't know why. Back then in the 80s, autism was, nobody knew what it was. Even in the 90s, to be honest, my whole education, going all the way to 9th grade, I quit school in 10th grade actually. That's when I quit school and I went to work physical labor. Didn't fit in school, never liked school, couldn't understand the paperwork, had many challenges when it came to going to school. Teachers would try to teach me with the paperwork, and I couldn't learn, couldn't retain the information. Sorry. I didn't know why, didn't know what was wrong with me. All my friends could seem to retain the information for math, science, history, all that stuff. I just couldn't retain anything. But then in high school, I had home ec. That was my best subject. And then we had the class where we worked on cars, mechanic class. I did very well in that. Those were my best subjects, and wood class, of course. So all those three subjects were my best subjects, but they all had one thing in common. The teachers would teach you hands-on how to do this stuff. They'd show you. I remember the how to do an oil change. They'd sit you down. We were all sitting down in class, and the teacher would show us on a car with his hands, and the car was present and showing us how to do an oil change. Now, that's why I learned so quickly. I picked it up like this. I was very fast at picking it up when somebody would show with their hands how to do something. But when it came to all the rest, it was Chinese, and it still is to this day. It's still Chinese. I suck at math. I have lots of trouble with my grammar. Sometimes I have trouble with my speech. I have trouble saying what I want to say. It's like the words are in my head, but I can't get them out, and that's very, very difficult. In high school, let's talk about relationships. Now, I met my wife in second grade, but we were off and on dating. So let's get that out of the way. There are a lot of times where we weren't together, and then she did her own thing, I did my own thing. But I had a lot of problems forming relationships, and when I did, got hurt quite badly by a girl. I was in love with her, thought she was in love with me, but yeah, she wasn't. But when you're autistic, you don't really pick up on the what they so-called the red flags and all that. You don't really pick up on it. So relationships were always difficult. My wife, well, when we did it in second grade, we had a lot of bullies. Me and my wife both together had a lot of bullies at the same school. When we were dating at school in 7th grade, we started dating.
Yes.
The bullies got worse on both me and my wife. They wanted us to separate. They just didn't want us to be together. I remember we kissed once in the schoolyard, and the kids, the other bullies saw it, and first thing you know, we were the talk of the school, and it was all negative, of course. Kids can be cruel. It's a very true thing, and because I was autistic and I was different, I was quiet, and I was in my own little world, people treated me that way. The same happens with my son. Still to this day. At the campground, my son was playing at the park, and other kids didn't really want to play with him because he's different. My son has a lot of sensory, and he has a lot of stimming. Stims a lot. Come here, bud. So yes, I love you too. Love you too. Me and my son have a bond, though, a deeper bond, because we have the same disease.
Superpower.
Well, it's not really a disease. It's
your superpower.
That's a superpower, yeah. Our brains, it's actually proven it's not a disease, it's just our brains work differently. We learn differently. So, yes. In some cases, our brains are so fast, we just can't get the words out, nonverbal. But then you have me and my son who are verbal, but we have many challenges. Mm-hmm. All right. Maddie, we'll continue talking about I love you too. So my son's, when it comes to stimming, he's worse than me. He does a lot more stimming than I do. My wife makes kites, things that look like kites. Right now she just made a fish with a string. And he'll shake that all day long. Many of you, especially the road warriors, probably noticed it in the parking lot, or a lot of people might have noticed it, but he shakes that, and that's his stimming, and he'll make noises with his, lately he's been very verbal with the so he does a lot of that, and that's his stimming, and that's just the way he stims. And of course we let him, and because he needs to do that. I had stimming too, just not quite as severe, and my stimming was somewhat different.
Chewing your pens.
I would chew my pens. Yeah, my wife remembers. Sometimes I had an ink mess all over my face because I would chew my pens. It was something that teachers didn't like that I was doing, but they gave me a lot of crap about it. But all this time I had something. Just...
And your leg.
And my legs, yeah.
Always moving your legs.
My leg. I was always moving my legs in school. I was always doing that little accordion thing with my legs, nonstop.
Show the fish on the hook.
So I'm sure I can show the fish that you just made. She made this today, actually.
I just finished it.
She just finished this one. So it's a fish.
On a hook?
On a hook, as we like to call it. And my son, he shakes these, and he'll do that and it works for his stimming. So my wife's is making a whole bunch of these.
I'll be making them in the autism colors.
She'll also be
fishing for autism.
Yeah, she's also going to be making them in the autism colors for fishing for autism. We want to help fishing for autism because it's close to our heart, because me and my son are both autistic. There you go, bug. Okay, so we talked about elementary school, we talked about high school, and I didn't exactly say everything, but there's the relationships that I focused on and how I don't do well with change. I guess, where can I go with this? So right now I have a memory blank. And I gotta think about it. I'm not gonna edit this video. Usually I stop the video, I pause it, and then I just edit it downstairs or whatever. I'm just gonna let it roll. Even as an adult, I have a lot of hardships, a lot of hard times, and you know what? I have hard times trusting people. I don't know if that's part of autism. It probably is, because of not having much friendship growing up and having difficulty with that. And everybody I did meet or who did become a friend weren't exactly a good friend for me. Had a lot of bad luck that way. Example, elementary school, my mom would often pack junk food because that's all I would eat. I didn't want to eat vegetables. And it wasn't just a lot of people would tell my parents, "Oh, you should force him. You know what? He's just being, it's all in his head." And trust me, I still do that to this day. I don't like vegetables. I really, really don't. I'll take tomato sauce, but I won't eat a tomato, an actual tomato. But I'll take the sauce. I love ketchup. I love hot sauce. But you won't catch me eating an actual slice of tomato. It's just the way it is. I don't choose to be this way. It's not all in my head. It's just the way it is. So if one thing I could educate everybody on, one thing that I want to bring up too is when people say, when I tell them that I was diagnosed autistic not too long ago, I've been getting a lot of, you don't look autistic.
Autism doesn't have a look.
My wife gets really upset at that when people do that, but now she's getting better with that. But I mean, it's because people are just, well, she still gets upset at it, but I don't. I'll tell you why, because I know people are just not educated on autism. Even to this day, even though there's been a lot of awareness about it, it still doesn't seem to reach everybody, but people just don't care. Yeah. It's hard when people say that you don't look autistic, because autism doesn't have a look. It's a spectrum. You have high functioning, so basically verbal, people like myself. And you have the ones that are nonverbal, that are in a worse situation for sure, because they can't verbalize what they're trying to say. And that's even more difficult when you have a child that's more severe on the spectrum. But it's not without challenges being high functioning either. I've always had trouble with jobs, right? The only job I was able to do was contract cleaning. I was a contractor thanks to my dad, because my dad was a contract cleaner, and he was also worked for the school board as a chief custodian. And let's say something about my dad. He's a great man, always had food on the table. He worked really hard, 2-3 jobs his whole life, and I really admire him and appreciate him as a father. He's a really good dad. Taught me right from wrong, taught me morals, and I'm happy he did. I am. And, my dad was also a hands-on learner, worked really hard his whole life. Now I was a contract cleaning because my dad showed me all the strings. He showed me hands-on how to, shampoo carpets, strip and wax floors, how to clean a wall properly. There is a way to clean a wall. I know all that stuff because my dad showed me hands-on. And that's how I learned, Don't give me paperwork because I won't be able to do that. But hands-on learning, I am. I'll learn quickly. I painted houses once with my brother, and sometimes I did 1 or 2 houses on my own. I was a pretty good painter thanks to my dad. He showed me hands-on how to do that. So, and cleaning. So things I would do. I had multiple contracts. Thanks to my dad because he showed me a lot of the ropes, and that's what I did. And then by the age of 29, I was hit with a lot of physical ailments. Diabetes, severe diabetes. High blood pressure, severe high blood pressure. When I mean high blood pressure, I don't mean 170, 180, 190. I was at 260, 270. That's better now, but back in the day, I was at 260, 270 over, 110?
About, yeah.
And about 95 heartbeats a minute, I think, sorry. So, so those were basically my daily readings, and it never really got better, even with medication. They kept changing my medication to try to figure me out. I'm still not there yet, even today, 12 years after. 12 or more than 12 now. It was back in 2011, 2012.
13 years?
Okay, so I was right. So 13, yeah, mostly 13. So 13 years now, they still are not able to regulate my sugars or my blood pressure. Now my doctor said, now finally, after all this time and switching so many pills, and be careful with pills. I have respect for doctors, don't get me wrong, I do. But be careful with some of the medication, because they had me on metformin with my first family doctor, not the current one, but the first one I had. They had me on medication for metformin, 2,500 milligram. On top, that wasn't working, so they added glyburide to go with that. Now, I didn't know at the time, but the combination of such a high dose and glyburide is extremely hard in your stomach. I didn't know that. It's hard on your liver and your stomach, and I did not know that. I just listened to the doctors. I took it for 6 years, even though there was no effect. My sugar was still quite high. I didn't see no results. I wanted to quit multiple times, but my current family doctor at the time said, no, you can't quit. You got to keep taking this. Now, after I switched family doctors, and to this point, he's much better, and I'm staying with him. He told me he took me off metformin. He said, metformin, the glyburide that you're on, is what caused you your GERD. Now I have gastrointestinal reflux disease.